Tonight, a deadly attack at a synagogue in England.
Absolutely shocking, and all of our thoughts are with those affected.
As millions of Jews around the world celebrate Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. The British government tonight promising immediate action. Plus, stalemate on Capitol Hill as the government shutdown continues. The debate centered on health care as hundreds of thousands of federal workers are furloughed. Our political panel will discuss. And make America healthy again.
This administration is not interested in continuing down the path of doing the same old things as we watch our nation's children get sicker.
Walmart now announcing its plan to eliminate synthetic dyes from its generic food products. Why some in the health world warn it could give consumers a false sense of health. All of this and more tonight on Faith Nation. British police have declared a deadly rampage at a synagogue a terrorist attack. Good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. The attack happening today on Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. 2 people are dead and 3 others seriously injured after the attacker drove a car into a crowd and then stabbed 1 man before trying to enter a local synagogue. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke has the latest. Caitlin, how are British officials responding?
Jenna, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he was appalled by this act of violence. He was in Denmark meeting with other members of the European Union when the attack happened. But at the airport, rushing back to the UK, he said the British government was taking immediate action.
Additional police assets are being deployed to synagogues across the country, and we will do everything to keep our Jewish community safe.
Manchester police say the attacker is dead, shot by responding officers within 7 minutes of the first call to police. The bomb unit also responded due to what they called suspicious items being worn by the attacker. Authorities say 2 other people have been taken into custody. Today is Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, and authorities say a large number of people were worshiping at the synagogue at the time of the attack. Now, investigators have determined that what appeared to be an explosive device was, quote, not viable, and they say there is not an ongoing threat to the public. Jenna?
Ticking, President Trump said Hamas had only a few days to respond to the deal he proposed to end the war in Gaza. There are reports Hamas officials want amendments, while others, though, want to accept the deal. Hospitals in Gaza said Israeli strikes killed at least 41 people. Meanwhile, Israeli naval forces have intercepted an international flotilla carrying activists and humanitarian aid. And for more on this, we're joined by Edmund Fitton-Brown, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Edmund, welcome. So time is just about up for Hamas. What's your sense? How much leverage does the terror group have at this point? And do you think they'll accept this plan put forward by President Trump?
I don't think they have much leverage. I mean, their military situation is dire, and they're obviously under extreme pressure from the Israelis in Gaza City. In terms of political leverage, that seems to have evaporated with the announcement of the Gaza peace plan by President Trump with Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday in the Oval Office. And so Gaza, I think that Hamas now finds itself more politically isolated than it ever has before. Both Qatar and Turkey, as well as Egypt, have said that they will press the plan on Hamas. So it looks as if Hamas doesn't have very many places left to hide.
Yeah. They're saying that some of them are saying that they want amendments. What kind of amendments, Edmund, do you think might be acceptable to Israel and the United States, if any?
Well, I think it's interesting just to go back quickly to how this all came about. I mean, there was a lot of work that went into this peace plan. The diplomacy was going on for a month or so before the announcement. And what we had towards the end of that period was consultation between the United States and various Arab and Muslim partners, and then some final input from the Israelis, which I think probably tipped the plan into feeling quite pro-Israeli. If you look at it in detail, the only 2 things in it that Hamas will find at all attractive will be the undertaking that Israel would not annex Gaza, and also that there could be a path towards a Palestinian state. But in general, this looks like a complete surrender by Hamas. So it's hard for them really to look for adjustments here. Anything other than a small adjustment would leave it still as a defeat for them. And any large adjustment would clearly be rejected by both the Israelis and the Americans. And President Trump endorsed the idea on Monday that if Hamas didn't simply accept this, that Israel would be entitled to finish the job, as he put it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in these next hours and days. On a different but related topic, President Trump has pledged to support Qatar from an armed attack. Edmund, I'm curious your reaction to that news as President Trump and Israel do try to bring an end to this war in Gaza.
Well, as you say, it's a related topic. I don't think there's any doubt that the Qataris drove a bargain with President Trump, and they said they would sign up to and support the Gaza peace plan, but only if they got an apology from Benjamin Netanyahu, and they did get that. As you know, he telephoned from the Oval Office to apologize to the Qatari Prime Minister for the Israeli attack on Hamas in Doha on the 9th of September. So I think in that respect that they wanted that. The other thing they wanted was this guarantee, which they've got through an executive order, which again President Trump signed on that very same day, on Monday. So all of this comes as a package. Now, what is the significance of the security guarantee to Qatar? Of course, the Israelis will be slightly concerned about it. You know, it seems to say after the event that the US would not tolerate another Israeli strike on Qatari soil. But if you think about it, that was not the first foreign strike on Qatari soil this year. It was the Iranians who did that in June. And so also to some degree directed against the Iranians. Yeah.
Edmund, we are out of time, but it's always great to talk to you. We appreciate you coming on. Edmund Fitton-Brown with FDD, thank you. All right, now to the latest on the U.S. government shutdown. No real progress to report tonight as both sides seem dug in for now. Because of the Yom Kippur holiday, there's no action in Congress. President Trump says he will slash Democratic priorities, meeting with his budget director about which cuts he will make. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today warned of mass firings in the thousands for federal workers. Airlines are warning travelers they could face delays as the shutdown continues. And with that, let's bring in Mark Hamrick, Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate. Mark, welcome. So let's start with this government shutdown. What impacts could we see from it, Mark, economically?
Good to be with you. It really depends on the length of this shutdown. The last one was a doozy, 35 days, beginning in late 2018, continuing through the early part of 2019. These are regarded as essentially short-term events for the U.S. economy in the sense of the majority of economic activity, which doesn't occur during the shutdown, eventually occurs after it is resolved. But there are plenty of casualties among people who suffer because of this. And so think about contractors who are missing business because the government is shut down. Think of the businesses of all kinds that rely on the federal government, whether they are adjacent, nearby, or do business of another kind. The mom and pop restaurant, the dry cleaner, where a federal worker is furloughed, they're not going there. And of course, the hundreds of thousands of people who are not receiving their paychecks right now, but eventually will. And think about the taxpayer essentially being responsible to pay them for having done nothing through no fault of their own. So in the meantime, by the way, Jenna, we're due to get a jobs report, but we won't get one because the statistical agencies are not able to produce the data that we rely on. And so we're now sort of walking in the dark, not knowing how the economy is performing at a time when the job market's been weakening and the Fed is cutting rates because it's concerned about the lack of strength in the job market.
Yeah. You probably saw this. It's a vibe survey put out by Axios and the Harris poll. It shows Americans say it's harder now to afford groceries than it was a year ago. Mark, of course, you follow inflation very closely. Help us understand why it feels like that and if we could see some relief anytime soon.
Won't see relief anytime soon, I'm sorry to say, Jenna. And the inflation with food has been higher than the overall rate of inflation. If we go back to January of 2020, essentially prices have risen 20% since then, but food prices have risen 23%, and that's the average. So, try buying a steak these days, you may settle for a can of Spam, right? And so this is consistent with the affordability challenges that Americans are facing across the board at a time when the job market's weakening and wage growth is slowing. I think that people do dial in to food prices because they're irritated, for example, aside from the affordability challenges in general, but also see, as we know from the past couple of years, when eggs were spiking, they're paying $8, not 2 or 3, and it just makes them angry that they have to pay more for that. The same with beef and other things, but obviously broadly, the cost of food is higher, and that causes strain for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, Mark Hamrick with Bankrate. Mark, thank you. Stay with us. Up next, our Faith Nation political panel. We'll talk about the government shutdown, fighting crime in America's cities, and what voters really care about in all of this. Next. And welcome back. We bring in the Faith Nation political panel now. Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Senior White House Correspondent Kelly Wright. Gentlemen, let's start with the government shutdown. Obviously, it's a big story here locally in Washington. But how much do you think everyday Americans are paying attention? And what are they getting out of this? What do you think they're taking away, David?
Well, they're taking away what we're all taking away, which is dysfunction. Here we go again. But beyond all of that, I don't think it's a kitchen table issue all across America. But look, there's 750,000 or so federal employees. It's a big deal. Having said that, the government does continue to run with essential employees. And that's the key word, Jenna, essential. This government shutdown is giving President Trump and OMB Director Russ Vought a lot of flexibility here to decide what is essential and what is not. And that puts the Democrats in what my dad would like to say, a pickle, if you will. What are they going to do? And quite frankly, the other question here is, what is Chuck Schumer going to do? What exactly is the Democrat leader's exit strategy here? He is beholden at this point to the far left, and I'm not quite sure how he gets out of this.
Yeah. Kelly, who do you think, does anybody blink? Where does this go?
So where it goes right now is more polarization, more of division. As I mentioned before, it's an us and them strategy, and caught in between the us and them, Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill, is we the people. What do we face and what do we get out of this government shutdown, particularly if 750,000 federal employees lose their jobs because of this? And the president is looking at this as an opportunity to actually correct some of the things that he believes are incorrect in government, that there are too many people on the government payroll in terms of working. Democrats see this as a way of trying to broker a deal on the Affordable Care Act. But the bottom line is anybody really listening to the American people, or are they doing more harm to the American people?
Yeah. Gentlemen, let's talk about the crime crackdown. We saw Attorney General Pam Bondi, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in Memphis this week. President Trump says the National Guard is in place in Portland. Kelly, give us your take on how this is playing politically to most Americans watching unfold on clips and on TV.
It depends on what these Americans believe in terms of their ideology. If they believe law and order has to be necessitated by having a National Guard unit operating on the streets of Memphis or even Portland. We do know that the leadership in Memphis, the mayor there, is not really keen on the idea, but he is collaborating. We know that Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee welcomes this opportunity and signed the authorization for the National Guard to come to Memphis. Memphis is receiving this because of its high crime rate. And while people are saying that the crime rate is going down, it has not significantly gone down. That's why the president has authorized this as well. And of course, over in Portland, the president wanted to do this when he was serving in his first term, and he's doing it again. Of course, it is not a welcome sight from the governor as well as the mayor of Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, David, final word?
Well, the key word, I think, from Kelly there was operating. In other words, once the National Guard gets on the ground and starts operating, what will they do exactly? Because remember, this was the problem in Los Angeles in terms of the lawsuits. In other words, through the Posse Comitatus Act, the National Guard can only assist federal agents, law enforcement. If they start making arrests and doing other things along those lines, then it's going to be more of a legal battle. It's already a legal battle, but it'll even be more so. So I think it's just going to get all in the courts, and then beyond that, I would just simply say public safety is number one for voters, and that helps the Trump administration.
Okay. David and Kelly, thank you both. Well, new plans from companies to phase out artificial food dyes will change a lot of the foods Americans eat. So why do some experts have a warning they want you to hear? We'll explain next. Welcome back. Walmart has announced its plans to eliminate synthetic dyes from its generic food products by January 2027. The company says it's making the change because that's what consumers want. It also follows a recent government push known as MAHA, or Make America Healthy Again. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson reports on more changes to come and why some experts say it could potentially create a false sense of health.
This year, major companies like Kraft Heinz, General Mills, and PepsiCo have stated they will voluntarily remove all artificial dyes from their products within the next 2 years, replacing them with natural colors. Meanwhile, several states are joining the effort to restrict these ingredients with the same time frame. The Food and Drug Administration is also doing its part by banning the synthetic red dye 3 by 2027, while approving 3 new natural food colors.
This administration is not interested in continuing down the path of doing the same old things as we watch our nation's children get sicker.
Some studies suggest a link between artificial food dyes and neurobehavioral issues in children, including hyperactivity and problems paying attention.
The magic related to color, it all happens right here.
Sensient Technologies in St. Louis makes natural food colors using things like beets, turmeric, and carrots. It's seeing a surge in orders, which means more time will be needed to meet the demand.
Tens of millions of pounds of these products need to be grown, pulled out of the ground, extract the color from them.
While virtually all health experts agree the idea of processed food companies getting rid of artificial dyes is a good one, many see it as a brilliant marketing move if it convinces consumers that no synthetic dyes equals healthy products.
Taking artificial dyes out of Skittles is still going to leave you with Skittles. And so one of my concerns is that what if that puts sort of a halo of health on Skittles now that they have something other than artificial dyes?
Author Michael Moss investigated many processed foods and believes the amount of sugar companies put into their products is far more dangerous than the synthetic colors.
Sugar they call the bliss point because they work up formulas. They call this food engineering to achieve the perfect amount of sweetness in products. They've marched around the store adding sugar, engineering bliss points to things that never used to be sweet before.
Products like yogurt, bread, and pasta sauce.
What we're really doing with this is a magician's trick. It's look over there, and these food dyes are the troublemaker, when in fact the actual trouble is in these processed foods themselves.
As a physician, Dr. Stephen Gundry says companies' use of the chemical glyphosate on almost all conventionally grown grains scares him.
So they found out that they could spray normal crops, normal wheat, normal oats, normal corn, normal soybeans with glyphosate and kill it so that they can have their giant combines, their harvesters, on a field on a particular date.
The International Agency for Research on Cancer classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. Since then, the product's parent company has spent approximately $11 billion settling lawsuits over the cancer allegation. The chemical has also been leaked to leaky gut, which can cause migraines, fatigue, and autoimmune diseases, according to Gundry.
So glyphosate was discovered by Monsanto Corporation in the 1970s, and it was actually patented not as a weed killer, not as an herbicide, but as an antibiotic. And that should raise our eyebrows, number one.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says eliminating artificial dyes is just the beginning of his fight against the processed food industry. Others predict a short fight ending in defeat, largely because of the industry's influence through campaign contributions, economic impact, and political power.
The problem with fighting it from RFK's standpoint is that Congress, which eventually makes the laws, has an interest in monetarily supporting their campaigns.
Frankly, I think he's at the wrong agency, because the vast power to regulate and change our eating habits lies not at HHS, Department of Health and Human Services. It lies with the Agriculture Department. And by and large, the Agriculture Department is controlled and dominated by this handful of processed food companies.
So even with no artificial dyes, health experts advise staying away from processed foods and going the natural way, even if it takes time to convert those around the table.
That if you serve plain steamed broccoli to your kids 20 times, by the 21st time, they may actually like it. And it worked in our family. My boys are now 25 and 20. And I tell you, even today, they come over and they're asking for plain steamed broccoli.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And coming up, speaking of food, these bears are all about it. And one in particular overcame some challenges to get a coveted title. Meet the winner of the Fat Bear Contest next. Finally tonight, a celebration of size and endurance as Alaska's beloved Fat Bear Week contest comes to a close. The winner, meet Chunk, a towering brown bear with a broken jaw, no less. This is Chunk's first win after finishing in second place for the last 3 years. Chunk comes in at an estimated 1,200 pounds. The annual online competition allows followers to follow 12 years bracket style. The naturalists who organized the event think Chunk hurt his jaw in a battle with another bear. Big and tough. All right, congratulations, Chunk. And that is going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.